The strangest thing about losing someone isn't always the goodbye. Sometimes, it's realizing that the person you never expected to need was standing only a few feet away from you all along. I learned that on a lonely stretch of highway somewhere between Colorado and Utah, when my neighbor, Grace, looked at me through the passenger side window with tears in her eyes and quietly said, "I think this is the first time in years I've felt like I'm actually going somewhere." I had invited her on my road trip as a joke. I never imagined she would say yes. And I certainly never imagined that saying yes would save both of us. If you believe kindness can give someone a second chance, please take a moment to like this story, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Sometimes, the smallest invitation can change an entire life. My name is Ethan, and at 35, I had become very good at pretending I was fine. I lived alone in a quiet neighborhood outside Denver, Colorado, in a small house that always seemed too large for one person. 2 years earlier, I had lost my younger brother, Caleb, in a highway accident. Since then, I had avoided long drives, crowded places, and almost every memory that reminded me of him. But one autumn morning, after staring at his old road atlas sitting on my bookshelf for nearly an hour, I decided I was tired of being afraid of the road. I planned a week-long drive through Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and Nevada. I told myself it was a vacation. Deep down, I knew I was running towards something I couldn't name. My neighbor Grace lived 3 houses away. She was 32, quiet, polite, and strangely mysterious. I had seen her almost every morning carrying groceries, watering flowers, or sitting alone on her porch with a cup of coffee. We had exchanged dozens of casual greetings but never had a real conversation. One evening, while I was loading bags into my SUV, Grace walked past and asked where I was going. I smiled and jokingly told her I was taking a road trip and that she should come along because I could use someone who knew how to tolerate my terrible music. I expected her to laugh. Instead, she stopped walking, looked directly at me, and said, "Okay." I actually thought I had misheard her. But Grace simply smiled and went back toward her house. 20 minutes later, she appeared with one small suitcase and a backpack. She had packed almost nothing. No fancy clothes. No unnecessary belongings. Just a few things and an old photograph tucked carefully inside a book. The first few hours were awkward. We drove through the mountains while soft music played between us. Eventually, Grace admitted that she hadn't taken a vacation in almost 6 years. Her husband, Michael, had died suddenly from a heart condition, and after his death, she had spent years taking care of his elderly mother. When his mother passed away earlier that year, Grace realized she had no idea what to do with her own life anymore. She had spent so long being someone else's caregiver that she had forgotten who she was. That explained the strange look in her eyes when I invited her. As the miles disappeared behind us, we slowly became comfortable. We laughed about ridiculous roadside attractions, argued playfully about which diner served the best pancakes, and took photographs beside enormous rock formations. For the first time in years, I told someone about Caleb. I told her how he used to race me down empty roads and how he always insisted that every journey needed an unexpected stop. Grace didn't try to comfort me with empty words. She simply listened. That night, we stopped near Moab, Utah. We sat outside a small motel beneath a sky filled with stars. Grace pulled the old photograph from her bag. It showed her standing beside Michael beside a blue pickup truck. She explained that they had once dreamed of driving across America together, but life kept getting in the way. Bills came. Responsibilities grew. Then illness arrived. She had carried the photograph for years because she couldn't bear to throw away the dream. The next morning, something went wrong. My SUV refused to start. We were miles from the nearest town, with no cell signal. Normally, I would have panicked. Instead, Grace laughed. She said perhaps the universe was forcing us to slow down. We spent 3 hours waiting for help beside the highway. During those hours, she told me something that changed the way I saw her. She said that after Michael died, she had blamed herself for every dream they never fulfilled. She believed that moving forward meant forgetting him. I told her I understood because I had spent 2 years believing the same thing about Caleb. A tow truck finally arrived, and the mechanic discovered that the problem was minor. But before we continued, Grace looked at me and said that maybe moving forward wasn't betrayal. Maybe it was the only way to carry the people we loved with us. Those words stayed with me. We continued through Arizona, stopping at the Grand Canyon just before sunset. Standing beside Grace at the overlook, I realized I wasn't thinking about my brother's death. I was remembering his laughter. For the first time, the memory didn't hurt as much. Grace noticed my smile and smiled back. Our final night was in Nevada. We sat outside the hotel, watching headlights move along the distant highway. Grace told me she was afraid to go home because she didn't know what waited for her there. I admitted I was afraid too. Then I realized something. We had both spent years waiting for life to become what it used to be. Maybe neither of us needed that anymore. Maybe we needed something new. When we finally returned to Colorado, Grace didn't disappear back into her quiet house. She started taking photographs again. She joined a local hiking group and began volunteering at a community center. I started driving again, first short distances, then longer ones. We didn't suddenly become different people. We simply stopped allowing grief to make every decision for us. A few months later, I found Grace standing beside her front door with a suitcase. She smiled and asked where I was going next. I laughed and told her I hadn't decided. She raised an eyebrow and said, "Then maybe you should." This time, I didn't make it a joke. I asked if she wanted to come. She smiled. And somehow, that little smile felt like the beginning of another life. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who may need a reminder that life can begin again, and subscribe for more emotional stories about love, kindness, loss, and second chances. And before the story ends, I want you to comment one word, again. Because sometimes, the bravest thing a person can do is believe they deserve to begin again. I used to think my road trip was about escaping the past. Now I understand it was never about running away. It was about finally learning how to carry the past without letting it control the future. I invited Grace because I thought I was offering her a seat in my car. I didn't realize she would become the person who helped me find my way back to life. And maybe that's the truth about unexpected people. Sometimes, they don't enter your life because you need someone to love. Sometimes, they arrive because you need someone to remind you how to live. And sometimes, the person you casually invite to join your journey is the very person who has been waiting quietly for someone to invite them back into the world.